Coming up on the first 2025 edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Alaina Pinto. It's a new year, but the same old story on federal reform in Washington, D.C. Reports for the nation's capital say rescheduling is now a matter of when, not if, in 2025. Plus, Health and Human Services in D.C. releases a recommendation to the U.S. Surgeon General to add cancer warnings to all alcoholic beverages now considered the third most preventable cause of cancer. Plus, the state of Texas could be the next battleground state for legalization as a bill is filed to create a legal adult use market in the Lone Star State. And with new leadership at the helm of the Cannabis Control Commission, Massachusetts might finally be ready to offer short, single, or 5-day event licenses, plus regulations for consumption lounges in 2025. All that and state to state, coast to coast cannabis news on Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Alaina Pinto. Next.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to the first 2025 edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Alaina Pinto. If you want documentation of the fight to end cannabis prohibition over the past 4 years, download the PCM TV app today. Just scan the QR code and you can get our news show every Monday morning. Okay, first up. What is going on in Washington, D.C.? It's the final days of the Biden administration, and the great unknown is what will happen when Donald Trump moves back into the White House and the GOP controls both houses of Congress. Is federal reform or descheduling dead? Will legalization ever become a priority amongst this session of Congress? And can lobbyists and representatives get reform to be more of a priority? One more note from Washington, D.C. The DEA is getting ripped by NORML for delaying the release of the end of the year U.S. cannabis arrest records for possession crimes. For decades, that agency releases that information to track the practices of law enforcement during this time of reform. However, the last report was released in May of 2023. Deputy Director of NORML, Paul Armentano, shared the frustration of his agency in a blog post that said, at a time when voters and their elected officials nationwide are reevaluating state and federal marijuana policies, it is inconceivable that government agencies are unwilling to provide data on the estimated costs and scope of federal marijuana prohibition in America. Here's the latest. On the hemp industry landscape, the 2018 Farm Bill has been extended again, maintaining federal protections for hemp. However, the industry faces a complex regulatory environment, as many states have implemented their own restrictions. The original bill, which expired in 2023, left a legislative gap that neither Republicans nor Democrats successfully filled with new proposals. This vacuum has shifted the focus to state-level actions. Lawmakers across the country are now addressing what's been termed a loophole in the 2018 bill. This has allowed for the sale of intoxicating hemp-derived products, including Delta-9, THC gummies and drinks, as well as novel cannabinoids like Delta-8 and Delta-10 THC. Both hemp and cannabis industry stakeholders are closely monitoring these developments as the regulatory landscape continues to evolve at both federal and state levels. The future of hemp-derived products remains uncertain as legislators grapple with these complex issues. We'll keep following this story, so keep following us for more. In California, the largest cannabis real estate group, Innovated Industrial Properties, is claiming that multi-state operator PharmaCann has defaulted on rent leases in multiple states. The totals of those rent defaults adds up to $4.2 million in past due rent. Another example of the challenges the overregulated industry faces. Well, now let's check in with our California correspondent, Dina Nagib, who visited Woody Harrelson's Cannabis Social Club in West Hollywood, California.
I, Dina Nagib, Principal Consultant of Grass Goddess Consulting, reporting as California correspondent for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm here at the woods of WeHo with Brian Holler.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hey Dina.
Brian Holler with Beard Bros. We met here at this consumption lounge, and we had a change in the law. Brian, do you want to mention what's different here today?
Well, I can enjoy some delicious food with my flour and my beverages. So, and beverages are new too, aren't they? Yes. So there we go. You can get coffee and water and all sorts of fun stuff as well, in addition to enjoying your lovely flour.
At the end of last year, we were actually able in California to pass a bill to allow not only consumption of cannabis, but also food and beverage.
Yep.
And
we have been enjoying some today of all three, as you can hear from me, but it's been great. The woods west WeHo is a fantastic spot. And, it's always lovely. It's a great environment. Always fun to be here.
And that's it. Thanks for joining us.
As we look back at the year that just ended, many professional sports leagues and the NCAA have eased up on their cannabis regulations. The NFL has lowered fines for positive THC tests, and the NCAA has completely taken cannabis off their list of banned substances. This is just another example of the easing of the stigma on cannabis. Another case in point is the playing of a college bowl game sponsored by Snoop Dogg's alcohol company, Gin and Juice by Dre and Snoop. It was called the Arizona Bowl, and our Arizona correspondent, Karen Black, has more from her state.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. The Medical Marijuana Testing Advisory Council released its preliminary 2024 annual report. The council found 115 testing-related problems among dispensary licensees and issued 148 citations. Only 10 led to enforcement actions and fines. Independent labs weren't off the hook either, with 12 testing facilities racking up 342 violations. 3 labs were penalized and fined, and some cases are still ongoing. Most issues for dispensaries and labs were resolved with corrective action plans. The most common problems? Not following the rules for collecting samples and labeling products, and a few places were slacking on their inventory control. As for recommendations, the council suggested banning MCT oils in vape products and requiring testing for specific terpenes in products that claim to have them. They'll update the report with data through December 31st when it's available. Arizona's cannabis sales continue to slide. We've seen a significant contraction with a 20.4% drop compared to last year and a 3.3% decrease month over month. This is a steeper decline than what's happening in other states like California and Colorado, where sales are also down, but not as dramatically. While December's figures aren't in yet, total sales for 2024 are likely to fall short of 2023's $1.4 billion. Key factors contributing to the market softening are increased competition, oversupply, falling prices, an increase in non-license holding cultivators, and general economic pressures. The High Times Cannabis Cup is returning to the Grand Canyon State, and for the third time, the competition is open to the public to judge. Here's what you need to know. Product submissions will be accepted at Mint Cannabis in Guadalupe, January 8th through 10th. Judge kits will be in stores January 27th and available for pickup on February 1st. Winners won't be announced till April. Lastly, Snoop Dogg sponsored the Arizona Bowl college football game December 28th in Tucson, but it was his alcohol brand rather than any of his cannabis companies on the marquee. Somehow, the NCAA, which removed THC from the banned substances list for Division I players last year, is okay with advertising alcohol, but not cannabis, to college students. According to the National Institutes of Health and the American Addiction Centers, 10.2% of Americans have alcohol use disorders, while only 6.8% have cannabis use disorders. Despite the hypocrisy, having a cannabis culture icon as the title sponsor of a major NCAA event may reflect the increasing acceptance of cannabis in American culture. That's this week's Arizona Report. I'm Karen Black for Greenfinger Consulting reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
There's some sobering news from the top doc in the country. U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy is sounding the alarm on booze and cancer. Turns out that nightly glass of wine might be doing more than just helping you unwind. Dr. Murthy's new advisory spills the beans on alcohol being the third biggest preventable cause of cancer in the United States, right behind smoking and obesity. We're talking about a whopping 100,000 cancer cases a year linked to alcohol. And get this, it's not just heavy drinkers at risk. Even light sippers might be upping their chances of certain cancers. The kicker, most of us had no clue about this connection. So the Surgeon General is pushing for clearer warnings on those bottle labels and a fresh look at what we consider safe drinking levels. Time to rethink that it's 5 o'clock somewhere mentality, folks, okay? Your future self might thank you for it. Stay tuned for more on this developing story. But in Virginia, the new year is off to a great start on the reform and educational front, as Joe Parsons explains.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is the Virginia Cannabis Report on Cannabis Coast to Coast News. The New Year's Eve in the Commonwealth started off with a tweet from Virginia marijuana regulators that said, "Planning to get higher than the Times Square ball this New Year's Eve? As you gear up for the countdown, don't forget the ultimate party essential, a sober ride. A safe and sober ride is something we can all toast to." The Virginia Cannabis Control Authority and other cannabis regulators have made sober driving a priority with their award-winning advertising and cannabis awareness campaigns. And as of this recording, and according to a statewide DUI search for the new year, I'm happy to report that total DUIs were lower than last year, and even lower numbers of cannabis-related DUIs as well. So it appears their approach is working, and is proof that education about smart consumption really pays off. In other news, the new year's off to a good start for cannabis issues. The Virginia State Crime Commission's Deputy Director, Colin Dragbert, presented a report to the Commission's General Assembly members containing policy recommendations for the 2025 session. One of the 22 issues in Dragbert's report was sealing past simple marijuana convictions and offenses. This would allow people to seek better employment and pursue opportunities that can sometimes be closed off due to the stigma that still remains towards cannabis patients and socially responsible adults. With the apparent support for easing restrictions from the new president-elect, it may even be possible to get legislation that last session was impossible to get past the governor's desk to be signed into law. I will keep you up to date on all this, as this is an ongoing development. So, that's going to do it from this week for the Virginia Cannabis Connection and reporting from Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
A University of Michigan professor is looking at the use of alcohol and the near daily use of cannabis among young adults. In a federally funded study authored by the University of Michigan's Megan Patrick, she called her study of about 20,000 people monitoring the future. Her conclusions are that young adults in the 19 to 35-year-old age bracket are 3 times more likely to use cannabis daily than alcohol. When it comes to all things in Michigan, we look forward to hearing from our Michigan correspondent, Amy Carter, who is featured in the Courage in Cannabis book series by Dr. Bridget Williams. She is a proud Michigander, but more proud of the growth of her now 18-year-old son, Jaden, who has used medicinal cannabis to control his autism for a decade now. Here's Amy.
I'm Amy Carter with Michigan Weedsters for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. This week, I am celebrating my son Jaden's 18th birthday, a moment that feels monumental after navigating the complexities of autism, ADHD, and oppositional defiant disorder. As a single mother, I faced overwhelming challenges that often left me feeling like I was in survival mode. When Jaden was diagnosed, our lives turned into chaos. I often found myself physically restraining him to prevent harm, and it broke my heart to see him struggle. Everything began to change when I discovered medical cannabis. After thorough research and some initial hesitation, I decided to give it a try. The first time Jaden consumed cannabis, I witnessed a profound transformation. He was no longer in distress. For the first time, he seemed comfortable in his own skin. This alternative treatment not only improved his mood and reduced his aggression, but also enhanced his cognitive abilities, allowing him to learn and grow in ways he had previously struggled with. It was like a light bulb turned on in his mind. Today, as I celebrate Jaden turning 18, I reflect on the milestones he has achieved, milestones I once thought were out of reach. I am now an advocate for families like ours, working on Jaden's Law to ensure that pediatric patients here in Michigan have access to medical cannabis while at school. I want to inspire other parents to explore all available options for their children and to advocate for legislative changes that support medical cannabis use. Our story, while unique, is a testament to resilience, hope, and the transformative power of compassion and understanding in the face of adversity. So this week, I want to wish my son a very happy 18th birthday. I am so proud of the incredible young man he has become. That's this week's story from Amy Carter, Michigan Weedsters, for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
That'll do it for the A block of this New Year's first edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast News. When we come back, we'll have the story of one of the biggest, most successful medical dispensaries in Massachusetts that was put into receivership after missing out on scheduled rent and vendor payments. Cannabis Coast to Coast News continues after this.
Ready to take your craft to the next level? Imagine faster extractions, purer products, and more profits. Sounds good, right? At Pure 5 Extraction, we've revolutionized cannabis extraction with our game-changing technology. No solvents, no heat, just the cleanest, most natural process on the market. Whether you're a boutique grower or a large-scale operation, Pure 5 has the tools to elevate your business worldwide. Visit pure5extraction.com today. Pure 5 Extraction, because your plants deserve the best.
I think I messed up. Did you know there's a place that covers all the cannabis news you need? Welcome to Pro Cannabis Media, your go-to for all things cannabis. PCM is the CNBC of weed, bringing you the latest news and talk shows with a twist. We've got 16 state correspondents and multimedia journalists from around the US and Canada.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with Big Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Amy Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Debbie Fazy with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
It all started back in 2018 when founder Jimmy Young kicked off the In the Weeds podcast. His mission? Documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition. Fast forward to today and we've got Cannabis Coast to Coast with Alaina Pinto, delivering the nation's only TV-style cannabis news show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast, PCM TV's weekly roundup of industry news from California to New York. I'm Alaina Pinto.
As of August 2024, PCM has racked up over 1.2 million views and 14.5 million impressions on our YouTube channel. With 15,000 subscribers and growing, our reach is spreading like wildfire. PCM's website, YouTube, Rumble, Discord, Roku, Twitch, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and even our very own PCM TV app. Get your cannabis news fix with Pro Cannabis Media. We're here to keep you informed and entertained. Stay tuned and stay lifted.